For more than 20 years, a silent enemy lived inside the walls of the FBI, not hiding in foreign cities, not operating from underground bunkers, but sitting quietly in the very rooms designed to protect America from betrayal. They formed task forces, created lists, chased ghosts, followed dead ends, and interrogated innocent men. But the spy they hunted was in the room with them. This is the story of Robert Hanssen, the most damaging traitor in the history of United States intelligence. He wasn't a shadow. He wasn't a foreign sleeper agent. He wasn't a mastermind buried behind layers of cutouts. He was one of them, an FBI counterintelligence officer entrusted with secrets so sensitive, entire operations depended on his silence. And yet, behind that quiet, unimposing face lived a man feeding the Soviet Union, and later Russia, some of America's deepest, most protected intelligence. His betrayal exposed double agents, crippled surveillance systems, and cost lives. By the mid-1990s, U.S. intelligence was collapsing from the inside. Agents disappeared, operations failed without warning, plans that should have been airtight were shattered overnight. Someone was giving information to Moscow, someone deep inside. There could only be one explanation: a mole. The FBI assembled a secret group, a specialized, highly classified mole-hunting task force. Their mission was simple: find the traitor before more damage was done. And Robert Hanssen was one of the people assigned to help track that traitor down. Imagine sitting in a room while agents discuss you. Imagine watching them dissect your mood, your leaks, your coded messages, while they have no idea that the man they're searching for is sitting at the same table. Hanssen listened as his colleagues detailed the mole's methods: the dead drops, the passwords, the classified documents that vanished, the Russian handlers, the cash, the diamonds. Every clue pointed to him. And yet, not a single person in that room looked his way. For years, the FBI studied mountains of evidence, charts, timelines, financial trails, behavioral profiles, but they all missed one thing. The spy they hunted wasn't hiding. He was working quietly at his desk, filling out reports, requesting files, shaking hands with the very people he was betraying. To understand how this quiet, unremarkable man became one of the most destructive operatives in modern espionage, we must go back to the beginning. Hanssen grew up in a small, quiet home in Chicago. His childhood was strict, structured, and cold. His father was known for being controlling, harsh, and deeply critical. Every mistake was magnified, every emotion dismissed. So Robert learned something early: not how to fight, not how to argue, but how to disappear, how to go unnoticed, how to keep his thoughts hidden, even in his own home. Teachers described him as quiet, withdrawn, distant. He rarely socialized. He spoke only when necessary. And he developed an unusual fascination with rules, secrecy, and the idea of hidden power. As he grew older, something else started forming inside him. A feeling that he didn't belong anywhere, that he was smarter than the people around him, yet always overlooked by them. He wanted importance. He wanted recognition. He wanted to matter. But the world treated him as forgettable. So he built a different kind of identity, a private one. A mind filled with secrets, a life lived inward, a world where he controlled what people knew and what they didn't. In his early adulthood, Hanssen became a police officer. It was here that he discovered something he had never felt before: access. access to information that others couldn't see, access to investigations, access to confidential files. For the first time, he felt powerful, not socially, not physically, but quietly, in a way no one else noticed. In 1976, that quiet power grew. Hanssen joined the FBI, assigned to counterintelligence. He stepped into a world filled with secrets, Cold War tensions, and the shadows of Soviet espionage. He finally found a place where being invisible was an advantage, where silence was strength, where he could hold information that no one else could access. And somewhere inside that controlled, organized mind, a shift began. The loyal American agent was still there, but beside him, a second identity had formed. One hungry for significance, one tired of being ignored, one ready to rewrite his importance, even if it meant betraying everything he swore to protect. This was the beginning of the double life. By the late 1970s, Robert Hanssen felt invisible inside the FBI. He showed up. He followed orders. He wore the badge, but no one saw him. And for a man who believed he was smarter than the world around him, being overlooked felt like a quiet kind of suffocation. A thought began to form, a question. What if he could be more than a quiet file clerk in the corner? What if he could hold power? Not through rank, but through secrecy. And that question didn't fade. It grew. Until one night Hanssen sat alone at his desk, long after everyone had gone home. He took out a sheet of paper, a simple letter. No name, no signature, no identity. In that letter, he offered the Soviet KGB something extraordinary. Classified intelligence, sensitive information, material he was trusted to protect. He asked for nothing in return, no recognition, no meeting, no praise. Only one instruction: use me carefully. When the KGB received the letter, they were stunned. Someone inside the FBI, deep inside, was offering secrets voluntarily. No recruitment, no threats, no blackmail. Just a quiet American opening a door. They examined the documents he provided. They were real, detailed, valuable. And so the Soviets gave him a code name. They didn't know who he was. They didn't need to. All they knew was that he worked for the FBI, and he was willing to betray it. Hanssen chose a public park for his first dead drop. He placed classified papers inside a plain plastic trash bag, left it near a wooden footbridge, and walked away. No dramatic meeting, no spy movie exchange, just a man placing a bag and disappearing into the trees. Later, the Russians rewarded him with envelopes of cash, sometimes small diamonds. But money wasn't the thing he cared about. The truth was simpler and darker. For the first time in his life, Robert Hanssen felt powerful. Not because of the money, not because of danger, but because he now controlled information that shaped two nations. The next morning, he returned to work, sat at his desk, drank his coffee, filed his reports. No one suspected a thing. Hanssen's double life had begun. And behind that quiet, unimposing face, a spy was born. Once Robert Hanssen opened the door, the flow of secrets did not stop. And what he provided was not minor or insignificant. It was deep. It was structural. It struck at the foundation of U.S. intelligence. He began sending information that the FBI had spent decades building. Critical surveillance methods, sensitive counterintelligence strategies, and the inner workings of operations designed to protect the country from foreign intrusion. One of his first major leaks revealed the identities of American sources operating inside the Soviet system. These individuals provided high-level insight into foreign operations, the kind of insight that takes years to develop. When those identities reached the KGB, entire lines of communication were shut down. Programs collapsed. Trusted channels became unsafe. Operations that had been stable suddenly failed. Plans that should have stayed protected were compromised. And yet inside the FBI, no one understood how it was happening. Hanssen also exposed critical surveillance structures, how the FBI monitored foreign agents, how communication intercepts worked, and how intelligence assessments were formed. With this knowledge, the KGB strengthened their defenses, they altered their strategies, they avoided detection, and American operations around the world were forced to adapt or quietly shut down. But perhaps the most striking revelation Hanssen provided was a classified FBI tunnel built beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., a multi-million-dollar operation years in the making, known only to a very small group of officials. When Hanssen revealed it, the project became useless. The information it was built to gather vanished. The KGB quickly realized the scale of what they had gained. This wasn't a low-level leak, this wasn't accidental. They had someone deep inside the FBI, someone disciplined, consistent, and highly informed. Hanssen became one of their most valuable assets. And while the Soviets strengthened their position, the United States began to feel the consequences. Operations failed without explanation. Intelligence lines went silent. The patterns pointed to one conclusion. Someone inside was feeding information to the enemy. But no one knew who, and the damage continued, quietly, steadily, from within. One of the most unsettling truths about Robert Hanssen is that he didn't escape detection because he was clever, but because he was ordinary. Inside the FBI, he was the kind of person people walked past without noticing. Quiet, awkward, unassuming. A man who blended into the background so completely that even his colleagues struggled to remember small details about him. He wasn't the type of agent who made jokes in the hallway. He wasn't the kind who stayed late to socialize or attended office gatherings or made himself memorable. And in the world of counterintelligence, being forgettable can be the perfect disguise. Hanssen maintained a routine that looked painfully normal. He arrived early, he worked quietly, he left on time. He rarely challenged authority, he filled out reports, he avoided conflict. To those around him, he seemed like a man with no ambition, no hidden motives, no desire to stand out. Someone who simply wanted to do his job and go home. But behind that quiet exterior was a mind that understood perception with unsettling clarity. Hanssen knew that the less attention he drew, the safer he was. He knew that silence makes people overlook you, and he leaned into that invisibility with precision. During meetings, he often sat at the back of the room listening carefully. He spoke only when someone asked him a direct question. People forgot he was even there, and the information he gathered in those rooms helped him continue his second life. Outside of work, Hanssen appeared just as plain. A family man, a church attendee, nothing unusual, nothing that raised suspicion. His life looked ordinary in every direction you examined it, and that was exactly how he wanted it. His cover wasn't built through disguise or deception. It wasn't crafted through brilliant strategy. It was built through something far simpler and far more dangerous. Invisibility, the kind that comes from being the last person anyone would imagine could change the course of American intelligence. And for decades, it worked. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Something inside U.S. intelligence was breaking. Operations that had been stable for years collapsed without warning. Agents lost contact with trusted sources. Foreign governments reacted to American plans with a level of precision that felt impossible. Patterns emerged, and those patterns pointed to one alarming conclusion. Someone was feeding information to the other side. Inside the FBI, concern quietly shifted into panic. Senior officers reviewed charts, timelines, failures, and nothing made sense. Too many disruptions, too many coincidences, too many losses. There had to be a leak, but where and who? For the first time in decades, the suspicion did not point outward toward foreign spies or hostile governments. It pointed inward, into the heart of American counterintelligence. The FBI responded by creating something unprecedented. A small, classified unit tasked with one mission: find the mole. The group operated behind closed doors. No public acknowledgement, no open records, no access unless you were specifically chosen. And among the people brought into the investigations was Robert Hanssen. He sat at the table as agents discussed patterns of betrayal he himself had created. He analyzed the very leaks he orchestrated. He studied the evidence that pointed directly to him and quietly redirected suspicion away. Hanssen's calmness only amplified the illusion. He offered insights. He suggested theories. He acted like a man genuinely concerned about national security. No one looked at him twice, but inside the agency, paranoia grew. Careers were damaged, reputations were questioned. Innocent officers found themselves under scrutiny because the trail was cold, and the real traitor was sitting in the room watching the confusion unfold. The damage spread quietly, subtly, steadily, and every day the United States fell further behind in a war of information it didn't even know it was losing. All while the man responsible continued his double life completely undetected. Robert Hanssen did not operate like a Hollywood spy. There were no car chases, no disguises, no dramatic meetings in dark alleys. His approach to espionage was quiet, controlled, mathematical. He built a system rooted in simplicity because simplicity leaves no fingerprints, no unnecessary steps, no risky movements, no one to recognize, and no one to suspect. He used dead drops, a classic method but executed with the calm discipline of an accountant. Hanssen selected quiet suburban parks far from government buildings, far from suspicion, far from anything that might draw attention. He never met with handlers, never spoke to a foreign agent in person, never engaged in the dramatic rituals that capture the attention of counterintelligence teams. Instead, he walked alone into secluded areas, left a bag, a bundle, or an envelope in a place only two parties in the world understood, and walked away. His communication system was equally unremarkable. A small piece of tape on a signpost, a chalk mark the size of a fingernail, an object angled slightly on a fence. To an ordinary passerby, these signals meant nothing. But to the KGB, they were precise instructions, a language spoken through silence. Inside the bags he left behind were no dramatic photographs or flashy intelligence. Hanssen provided something far more valuable: analysis, technical documents, FBI strategies, counterintelligence procedures, materials that shaped how the United States monitored foreign activity. In return, the Russians delivered envelopes of cash and occasionally small diamonds tucked inside similar dead drop locations. But Hanssen rarely spent the money. To him, the payments were secondary, a symbol, not a motive. what truly mattered was the sense of influence, the knowledge that he was shaping the intelligence war from the inside. And so his double life became a routine. By day, a quiet FBI agent with a simple lifestyle. By night, a ghost moving through parks and wooded trails, feeding secrets to a foreign power with a precision that left no trace. Two worlds, one man, and not a single person noticed the transformation. There is one question that has followed the Robert Hanssen case for decades. Why did he do it? His betrayal caused massive damage. It altered the course of intelligence history. It shook the FBI at its core. Yet his motivations were strangely quiet. There was no dramatic political speech, no ideological loyalty, no sudden moment of anger or conversion. The reasons were internal, subtle, and psychological. Hanssen received more than $1.4 million in cash and diamonds from the Russians. But money did not drive him. He spent almost none of it. His lifestyle never changed. He didn't buy expensive cars or large homes. The wealth he earned stayed hidden, untouched. Because the money was not the reward, it was simply a marker, a symbol of something deeper. Hanssen had spent his life feeling overlooked, invisible in his childhood, invisible in his social circles, invisible inside the FBI, where louder, more charismatic personalities outshined him. Espionage offered something he had never felt before. Significance, importance, a secret world where he was not ignored, but central. Not because he sought glory, but because, for the first time, someone needed what he knew. He also felt intellectually superior. He believed he was smarter than the people around him, smarter than the FBI, and even smarter than the Russians who used his information. Each dead drop, each classified document reinforced a private belief that he could control two global powers without either fully understanding him. He justified his actions through rationalizations. In private notes, he wrote about purpose, recognition, and balance. In his mind, his actions were not personal betrayals, but a way to correct what he believed was a lifetime of being undervalued. This is what made him so dangerous. His motivation wasn't greed, it wasn't ideology, it wasn't desperation, it was internal, silent, a hunger for significance that he never found in the life the world saw, but fully experienced in the life he kept hidden. Robert Hanssen lived in two identities. One he presented to the world and one he nurtured in shadows. And it was the shadowed one, the unseen one, that guided every decision he made for more than 2 decades. For more than 2 decades, Robert Hanssen operated in complete darkness, invisible, untouched, unchallenged. But every secret life eventually leaves a trace, and Hanssen's would be uncovered not by a new mistake, but by an old one. Years after his earliest leaks to the Soviets, a former Russian intelligence officer quietly defected to the United States. He brought with him boxes of archived Soviet material, documents, reports, and artifacts that Russia no longer needed. But America desperately did. Inside one of those dusty boxes was a collection of items from Hanssen's very first communications. Old envelopes, old plastic bags, old scraps of material that had been preserved without his knowledge. And on one of those items was a fingerprint that did not belong to any Russian handler, a fingerprint that should not have been there, a fingerprint that matched Robert Hanssen. At the time of his early activity, Hanssen felt untouchable. He didn't wear gloves, he didn't worry about forensic evidence. He believed he was too invisible to ever be suspected. But that single print saved by accident inside Russian archives became the thread that unraveled the fabric of his double life. Along with the fingerprint came fragments of coded notes, details of his writing style, and even a recording he had once sent to prove his value. The FBI and CIA began quietly comparing patterns, the timeline of failures, the style of the communications, the access level required. And slowly a name began to rise to the surface, a name that had never been seriously considered before: Robert Hanssen. A new task force was created. One Hanssen was not invited to join. They restricted his access, isolated his movements, and observed him from a distance. Hanssen noticed changes, he sensed pressure. But the truth was simple. The net was already around him, and every move he made tightened it further. Agents followed him quietly. They monitored his patterns. They traced his trips to parks and secluded areas. And then they saw what they had been waiting for. Hanssen was preparing another dead drop. A full surveillance team moved into position. Cameras hidden in the trees, agents in unmarked vehicles, a ring of eyes surrounding the park without ever being seen. Hanssen arrived casually, just as he had countless times before. He placed a package under a wooden footbridge, stood up, and began walking away. He had no idea that the most damaging double life in U.S. intelligence history was seconds from ending. The surveillance team waited in silence, hidden in trees, behind lenses, in unmarked vehicles surrounding the park. For hours, agents watched every angle, waiting for the moment that would bring an end to more than 20 years of betrayal. And then he arrived. Robert Hanssen walked with the same calm routine he had practiced for decades. Nothing about his behavior suggested suspicion. Nothing suggested he sensed the net around him. He moved toward the wooden footbridge, reached underneath and placed a plastic bag. His final dead drop. It was quiet, ordinary. Just another step in a double life he believed he still controlled. As he stood up and adjusted his coat, one voice came through the radio. "Now!" Agents moved in from all sides. No shouting, no dramatic chase, no confrontation, just controlled precision. And the end of an era of damage. Hanssen turned and saw them, and instead of panic, denial, or anger, he spoke calmly. "What took you so long?" Those were the final words of the most damaging spy in American history before his arrest. He did not resist. He did not argue. He walked quietly between the agents as though he had expected this moment for a long time. Inside FBI headquarters, news of the arrest spread quietly. Shock, silence, embarrassment. They had held meetings searching for a mole, while the mole sat inside the room. They had built theories about a foreign penetration while the breach lived in their own hallways. The magnitude of his betrayal was not yet fully understood. Much of it still isn't. But one thing was certain. The man who had quietly shaped the intelligence war from the inside had finally been caught. And the double life of Robert Hanssen was over. When Robert Hanssen was finally arrested, the first shock came from outside the FBI. But the deepest shock came from within. Agents who had worked beside him for years struggled to understand how the most damaging mole in American intelligence history had been sitting quietly among them. There were no signs, no confrontations, no dramatic behavior. Just a quiet man who had quietly broken the inside of the intelligence system. In the weeks that followed, teams began reviewing past failures. Operations that collapsed without explanation. Sources that disappeared. Programs that suddenly went dark. One by one, those events were traced back to the information Hanssen provided. And with each connection, the scale of the damage grew. Entire divisions had to rebuild their foundations. Foreign networks had to be reconstructed. Sensitive strategies had to be rewritten because the enemy had seen them through Hanssen's eyes. Inside the FBI, the emotional toll was significant. Some officers had faced suspicion for years because of failures they did not cause. Their reputations were affected, their careers disrupted, while the real traitor sat in the room, watching the confusion he helped create. Hanssen's arrest led to prosecution. He chose to plead guilty, avoiding a long and public trial. In exchange, he received one of the harshest sentences in American history: 15 consecutive life terms. He was sent to a federal supermax facility where he spent the rest of his life isolated, quiet, and removed from the world he once manipulated. Yet even after his imprisonment, one question remained unresolved: how much damage was truly done? Not every compromised program could be identified. Not every failure could be traced, and not every leak left a visible trail. There are intelligence officers who believe that some effects of his actions are still unfolding in small, subtle ways across international operations today. But one thing became certain after the case: the FBI could never operate the same way again. New security protocols were created, new internal monitoring systems were developed, new layers of protection were built to prevent another Hanssen from ever rising inside the organization. His betrayal forced an evolution. It reshaped how America safeguards its secrets. And it remains one of the starkest reminders that the most dangerous threats are often the ones we never think to suspect. When the case of Robert Hanssen was finally closed, the files were sealed, the evidence cataloged, and the damage assessed as best as it could be. But the impact of his betrayal did not disappear with the closing of a folder. It left a mark that still shapes American intelligence today. Because the true weight of the Hanssen case was never just about what he leaked, but about what he revealed. Inside the FBI, one question has remained for years: how did he do this for so long without anyone noticing? How did a quiet man with no dramatic behavior manage to outmaneuver entire agencies from inside their own walls? And how many failures, how many mysteries, how many unexplained gaps were the result of his actions that the world will never know? Hanssen exposed something deeper than classified information. He exposed a truth about the nature of trust. In intelligence work, agencies are trained to fear foreign enemies, outside threats, external attacks. But the Hanssen case reminded the world that the most dangerous traitor is not the one breaking in from the outside, but the one sitting quietly in the room. The colleague no one questions, the face everyone forgets, the person who blends in so completely that the idea of betrayal seems impossible. Hanssen's story is not just an espionage case, it is a study of human nature, of silence, of ego, of the shadows people build inside themselves when they feel unseen. And in the end, it raises a question that still echoes in the halls he once walked. How many secrets, even today, remain hidden in plain sight?